Is China leading in Southeast Asia? It sounds controversial, right? Well, here are 4 reasons why I think this might just be inevitable and why I think that the ASEAN+3 arrangement might be the way to stop it. First reason, China is already shaping the agenda. Why is China shaping the agenda? Because China has a lot to lose. The Trump administration's tariffs and all other measures that it has put in place endangers China's position in the global multilateral and trading system. Its markets are interrupted, supply chains are disrupted, and therefore China needs to ensure that the external surroundings, the global trading and financial system is intact and remains conducive for it to continue on its path of growth. And therefore China has already been very actively courting other countries to help stabilize the system. I have mentioned in an earlier video, China has reached out to Japan and Korea so that the 3 Northeast Asian countries can collaborate and cooperate in the international financial systems so that they can collectively deal with the turbulence which has been created by the Trump administration. Recently, President Xi Jinping visited 3 ASEAN countries. I've also covered that in another video. I would encourage you to watch it. In this video, he has been talking about creating a community with shared values with the 3 ASEAN countries. I suspect that China would eventually be pushing for ASEAN to declare an ASEAN-China community on shared values. Now, what we are seeing here, as you can realize by now, is that it is working with its Northeast Asian partners and Southeast Asian countries to create an environment which is conducive for trade, not only for itself, but also for the other countries as well. So, who is shaping the agenda here? It is China. Why is China shaping it? Because of its own interests, because it has the means to do it. The second reason is the external conditions are weakening ASEAN's centrality. Now, this is a bit complex. Let me explain this in a simple way. America has put out a competing concept known as the Indo-Pacific. This comes in direct confrontation with the concept of Asia-Pacific, which had already been understood and accepted for decades, within which ASEAN is seen as the core of the architecture in this region, in Southeast Asia. Now, with the concept of Indo-Pacific, what it means is that ASEAN's centrality or ASEAN's dominance in the structure is no longer assured. There is this competing concept of Indo-Pacific. And because of these conditions here, ASEAN is no longer in a position of being able to assert its centrality as strongly as it could in the past. And this gives room for other countries to fill in the vacuum. And China, being the closest to Southeast Asia, has been able to exert its influence in this part of the world through multiple ways. One, through the assistance that it gives out to the member countries, the Belt and Road Initiative that it has been pursuing, the various investment missions which have been conducted, the frequent interactions at the top leadership. The third factor is that the Trump's policies are actually pushing ASEAN countries to focus on bilateral efforts rather than regional efforts. Let me explain what I mean by this. The tariffs which have been slapped on the ASEAN countries are of different levels, which basically means that ASEAN cannot have a collective position, or it cannot meet with the US as a bloc to address this issue of tariffs. Each member country will have to attack this issue on its own, and they understand that these issues are not just merely tariffs, but there is a broader set of other considerations that has to come into play. And all this is being addressed by the member countries on a bilateral basis. So in an overall sense, the ASEAN's unity is somewhat diluted as a result of the current circumstances. And the fourth reason, I think, is ASEAN has lost its war cabinet attitude. Let me explain what I mean by this. In the past, whenever the region had been hit by a major crisis, ASEAN galvanized into action. In 1975, when the Americans pulled out of Vietnam, ASEAN jumped into action. It moved into trying to galvanize into a form of a community. And from that point onwards, we found that, ASEAN took in several measures, strengthening its neutrality, strengthening its interregional trade, etc. In 1997, when the Asian financial crisis hit, ASEAN stepped up through its ASEAN+3 cooperation, where the countries agreed to help each other, providing liquidity without overly relying on IMF and other countries, by helping each other out by bilateral swap arrangements, etc. There was this mental war cabinet mentality. But today I don't see this here. This war mentality is now within China. But China feels that its position is under threat. It is going all out and actively pursuing actions and measures and putting in structures so that it can remain dominant. And here, Southeast Asia is a crucial ground for China, and China, as I have indicated earlier, been able to position itself as a major player, an influential player, if you will, who is actually shaping the rules. The conditions in the external environment is such that China will continue to strengthen its position in Southeast Asia. Whenever there's a vacuum, somebody is going to fill it up. And in this instance, China is very well positioned because of its size, its ability, its resources at hand to be able to play the role. So, paradoxically, ASEAN is in a situation where, in order to be dominant in Southeast Asia, it needs to be able to exert control of its external environment outside of Southeast Asia per se. And I say that the ASEAN+3 framework is the most perfect vehicle for ASEAN to use. Now, why do I say that? Because if you look at it carefully, ASEAN+3 is the whole of East Asia. ASEAN+3 framework has already been established over the years since 1997. There are cooperation in many fields. Recently, the ASEAN finance ministers and the governors of the central bank met in Milan. They put out a very complex statement. Basically, it shows, or rather it prescribes a certain pathway that this ASEAN and ASEAN+3 countries should pursue to reduce the reliance on the dollar. And I think ASEAN needs to take a stronger position in moving the agenda of ASEAN+3. I would have loved to see an ASEAN+3 Emergency Summit taking place in Kuala Lumpur this month. But unfortunately, I think the agenda has already been drafted earlier. But I really think ASEAN should pursue the idea of an Emergency ASEAN+3 Summit. It will give this opportunity for ASEAN to exert its leadership over the ASEAN+3 process and to signal to China and to everyone else that ASEAN is in the lead. This is a very complex issue for sure. I think all of us are interested in it. I would highly encourage you to give your comments, share your thoughts, and please, by all means, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and hit the like button.